The Betterment Junkies.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I am Mr. White.
And I'm Mr. Black.
And we are the Betterment Junkies. And today's actually a very special day. We have our first very guest here. We're like official podcasters now.
I knew it'd happen one day.
It's pretty awesome. This is special, cool, and C-list celebrity. Can we say C-list celebrity?
That's fine.
Yeah. He is a rapper. That's why we say C-list celebrity. He dabbles in the music and production of it. He has a great album. I don't know. Is it on iTunes?
No, it's not.
It's not on iTunes. It is. We are gonna play this. Like we'll leave a song on the website. It's actually amazing. It gives me like complete '90s R&B vibe. I've listened to a lot of them. But here he is, Mr. Smith, or by his rapper name, Yachel. All right. Welcome, Mr. Smith.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here. We kind of discovered you, and we were like, that's actually pretty good. And we didn't know why you're not on iTunes. We didn't know why you weren't trying to sell any of this shit. And I told you, like, yo, come on the podcast. We'll promote it. Like, your music is good. Do this shit. But anyways, I digress. We got you here, and we got you here specifically today. I do want to let everyone know Mr. Smith is African American, not feeding into a stereotype. That's just what he is. And we brought him here today to talk about a special topic and a debated topic, and that's the N-word. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Before we get into this, we want to kind of get to know Mr. Smith a little bit. And what I wanted to know first was just kind of share like your life experiences making music, but specifically how is it different, or how do you think it would have been different if you were white or if you were something else rather than black? And have you experienced racism going through high school, going through college, or going through your work life?
So, I'll start off by talking about how I got interested in music. And ever since I was young, I wanted to produce music. So I wanted to be a Pharrell, a Timbaland, or Swiss Beats. And I never really had
production is good, man.
I never really had access to making music. So, as a birthday gift, my mother's boyfriend gave me a laptop with a program called Fruity Loops. A lot of producers know what that program is. And that was my 13th year birthday gift. And ever since then, I've been pretty much producing music on my own. Later on in high school, when I went to Chestnut Hill Academy, my music teacher had another program called Logic Pro 8. And
I remember that. I remember hearing that.
I've heard both
back in the
softwares
day.
before,
Yeah.
but like never got to use them.
yeah, and no one knew of the program. No one really used it, and I was the only student, and I'm probably still the only student who has ever used it. So
That's awesome that your teacher kind of introduced you to that. That doesn't seem like part of a curriculum.
not at all. Not at all. So she was, and the funny thing is, I never really was in her class. It was just that I learned that she had the program and she allowed me to use it, and she allowed me to record in the studio, and I started to develop a fan base, mainly because none of the students or teachers saw anything like this on the school grounds. So
Yeah.
This may be unrelated. Just a quick question: was your teacher African American as well?
no,
No. Okay.
this is a white woman,
Okay.
and I love this white woman. I still keep in touch with her.
Oh, really? That's
And
awesome.
I mean, she basically started his music career. You better keep in touch with
yeah,
her.
yeah. And she strongly encourages me to not stop. Unfortunately, I have had major hiatuses ever since high school.
But I will say you successfully did create one album. It's not like you just stopped. You successfully created something and then you stopped.
Yes,
All right,
that's
you can
true.
continue.
So I made an album in high school. It was fun. It was when I look back at it, it's pretty much unbelievable. I don't know how I did it, but it was the one of the greatest experiences that I've had during my high school years. So when I keep in touch with that teacher, her name is Dr. Ellen Fishman. Dr. Ellen Fishman Johnson. She's still at the school right now.
Shout out to Dr. Fishman Johnson. That's her.
We call her Dr. FJ.
Oh, okay.
And I still keep in touch with her, and she wants me to come back to the school so that I can talk to other students who are working on music theory, music writing, and tell them about my process when it comes to like production and recording and things like that. And even until this day, like she I don't know how she has my music, but somehow it got shared through the school, and she still plays it like during classes as like an
cool.
example.
That's a day one fan right there.
Yeah, for real. She really is. So soon, probably like early next year, I'll probably be going back to my high school and sitting in on one of the classes and just watching her teach and then being an example.
So you got in through production rather than like writing lyrics down. Like your first like interest into it was like producing music and then kind of making a song out of it.
Yeah. So I only wanted to produce music. I never wanted to be a lyricist. And my whole theory behind people listening to my beats was, if I rap over it, they're ultimately going to hear the beat. And if they don't like the lyrics, that's fine. I don't care.
You're so generous to the
As
beat.
long as they like the beat.
I mean, look it now. Walk it, look it, talk it.
So I try to make my lyrics worthwhile.
So you were an innovator, dude. You were the Migos before the Migos.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say that, but someone did with one of my songs. Someone did say that I was Drake before Drake.
Oh, okay.
And that's a lot to take in. But yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this: my girlfriend said you reminded her of Snoop Dogg.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, so
I've heard that a lot too, especially on the song "She's a Freak."
Oh yeah, I know what you're. I've heard them. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
And I like "I'm So Fly," and I can never remember the name of the song, but I know the singer you sang it with. Her name is Rachel.
Rachel.
Yeah. What's the name of the song?
Can't Take It.
Can't Take It.
Yeah.
It gives me like real like Ja Rule and like Sierra or something like that type
Word?
of yeah.
Wow.
Like some like hard lyrics with it, but like a smooth girl R&B. I like your album, dude. I'm telling you.
Thank you.
People should listen to it.
Thank you.
We'll put a link to it.
Yeah, absolutely,
page,
absolutely.
yeah.
We even we'll put like one or two songs on the website too. I'm sorry, I had a question before and it just got predisposed. I can't think of it. So I'll let you continue. Actually, so you did music production through high school.
Through high school, and
well, actually, I'll ask you this. Your name, your rapper name.
yes,
That's what I meant to ask you.
Yes.
Yachel.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So the name, it's a Hebrew name, and when I was young, I was associating with a group of people who call themselves the Hebrew Israelites. You guys have to just do your own research on that.
Sounds like a hard group.
But yeah, it's the group is collectively African Americans who believe that they are the Jews from the Bible, and
so they're not actually Jewish.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
But they believe they are the descendants.
It's like taking a name like Greek mythology and kind of putting it into something. They just took a concept of something, and which is cool, which is fine.
Yeah. And
I just assumed because you said Hebrew, which is I guess my own stereotype, that it was a bunch of you were hanging out with a bunch of Jewish kids. Anyways, I'm sorry. That's my little racism for today.
So when I was among them, they said that I had to get rid of my slave name, and
Ooh.
I had to choose my own.
Initiation.
Yeah, basically what it was, like an
Yeah.
initiation. So there was this book of names that I scoured through, and for whatever reason, I just came across Yachel, and it kind of spoke to me because the definition of that name means to have a strong desire or a yearning for something. So I took the name and I just ran with it. And because I didn't have any other like rap name to go by, I said, hey, Yachel. No one else has it in the world. No one else will have it in the world.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I never heard that name before.
So
I will admit, at first, it's maybe when I see you and you tell me your rapper name is Yachel, I'm like, what? Where do you even get that? But it actually has a nice ring to it. It does roll off the tongue, and I actually, as a name, and when you explain the meaning, I do like it.
Yeah.
I do like it.
And sometimes people just call me Yak for short. So Yak is like a cool way that Black people just shorten another name.
That reminds me of, you know, that song goes, yeah.
Yeah.
What song is that? I know what you're talking
I don't
about.
remember the name, but one dog. Oh, it's a Kendrick
It's a
Lamar
Kendrick
song. It's a Kendrick
Lamar.
Lamar. Where you from?
Mm.
Oh man, I
Mad
forget-
City. Mad
Yes,
Oh,
City.
yes.
Yeah, Mad City, Kendrick Lamar.
All right, I'm sorry. That's what
So-
it reminded me of.
Now to answer the other question, you know, have I experienced racism?
Yeah, so that's why I asked you if the teacher was African American, because as like Indians, I can understand like sometimes when I come across someone who's an older Indian person, they're kind of more predisposed to look out for me and vice versa kind of type of way. But which was, I mean, I just asked the question to see if there's any correlation. But it was awesome to see that she is a white woman being your day one fan to push you, which is, it shouldn't be an amazing thing in today's day and world, but unfortunately, like, those are the type of stories that kind of should be shined rather than other things. But would you say throughout that production time that you experienced any type of backlash or like racism or just segregation or something like that? Like, oh, he's black, he's making music. Like, it just kind of.
Honestly, no. It was she embraced me more than anyone else, more than my own mother, honestly.
Okay.
When I told my mom that I wanted to do music production, she basically shut that dream down and said, you know, you're gonna go to college and you're gonna like do something a little more lucrative, because music, we all know, isn't as prestigious as a lawyer or a doctor.
Yeah.
Trust me, we get it.
So,
Yeah.
So
I feel you.
in order to you know, still exercise that creative muscle, I had to abide by her rules, and my mom bought me a MacBook, and I got Logic on it, so I could still do my music thing on my own, and then you know, do what she says and go to school. But with Dr. FJ, there was no limitations on what I wanted to do as far as creating music. She let me use the studio way after school. I would be in the studio from like 3 until like 7.
Yeah.
And I even quit football because
Damn.
I didn't take football as serious.
You play football?
Yeah, I was like, you know.
Hold on,
I'm
you got
not
back.
doing
Now I
sports.
gotta stop you. What position you play?
I was a fullback and a linebacker.
Offense and defense.
I mean, in high school you have to play.
Oh,
on
okay.
both sides.
Okay.
But I don't want to get too far off track.
All right.
So,
sorry.
Yeah, Dr. FJ let me use the studio into the wee hours of the night. She let me take equipment home. She let me take microphones home. She let me take laptops home.
I'm sure she saw a passion in you, and that's what she fed off of.
And the thing was, I was teaching her about the program as well, because she couldn't really the things that she was using the program for weren't what I was doing.
So when she said she was a music teacher, right?
Yeah.
Now, my experience with music teachers has been like band orchestra. Was that the type of thing, or
Pretty
choir?
much.
So she
Yeah.
did.
I was in band.
Orchestra all the way.
That's my musical talent right there. Alto saxophone.
She mainly just
So she was kind of stepping out of, like, I mean, you said curriculum, but I'm assuming she saw passion in you in something that was outside of the school's curriculum,
Yes.
and then she let you feed into that passion and she supported you throughout that.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing, because I actually have seen teachers in my time like actively discourage new things if it doesn't fit into the curriculum, or if it's not. Yeah, I mean, it gets away from the essence of what I think real teaching is. I mean, just as a side note, that's why that's she seems like an amazing teacher.
She really is. And what makes it even better is that I wasn't really her student. I was just interested in music and music production.
Oh, yeah.
And she really took time out of her schedule to sit with me, let me know about the program, when I could come to the studio and things of that nature, when I could take the equipment home, when I could bring it back to her. So she really never taught me. She never graded anything of mine. She just let me create, and then I let her listen.
Yeah.
And then even till this day, she still encourages me. You gotta make something. Like, just don't stop. And I'm like, I'm an adult now, and my excuse is that, life is hitting me from all different directions, but I am working on something right now as we speak. So
nice.
It'll be coming out soon.
I'm sure you'll let us know right away when it's done.
Yes,
definitely. We're gonna be the first ones to hear it, right?
The title, the title of it is gonna be called the Vice and Virtue Project. So
I like it.
That'll be the theme.
Kind of like vice versa. I like it.
Yeah. The dichotomies of the world. So, that'll be coming out soon. I don't have a date yet, but you'll know through this podcast when it's gonna drop.
Oh, exclusive. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. All right, cool. And we will, like I said, we will play some of your other songs. We'll keep it on the website. You guys gotta listen. Like, we're in 2018, but I kind of grew up in the 90s, and when I hear a song, I'm just transported to a different time when everything was just peaceful and everything was good. Anyways, moving forward, I do want to get into the discussion of N-word. So, I mean, it sounds like you had, I wouldn't say a smooth sailing, but you obviously had ideal conditions to kind of pursue what you wanted to pursue at the time you were doing it. I do want to ask, after you kind of stopped and you had to kind of get into the real world, you went into a working force. Have you in your life ever experienced any type of segregation, or even if you, maybe a family member, if not you, or has it just been around you, or have you kind of been absent of it and kind of been, let's say, lucky to not have experienced it as much?
I think I have experienced racism, but as a defense mechanism, I don't want to believe that I've experienced it. So I really can't even give a clear-cut example. That's probably an issue. But
I wouldn't say an issue. I would say that's very fortunate. I think a lot of people should have that experience where they don't have to look back and be, because even we're Indian, but I can even think back a time like, so when I'll even go back to when I was a child. So when 9/11 hit, there was a big distinction of whether you were Muslim or not. And because of our brown skin, I think I was a fourth grader. As a fourth grader, before I went into school, I specifically remember my mom preparing me. I had to go in front of the class and kind of explain to the class that even though my skin color is the same that you see on the people on the TV, I'm not that same religion. I'm not that same person. And it's never hindered me or been like a force of wall to stop me. But I've experienced it then. I went into high school with my volleyball coach, or things like in workforces where other people were getting promoted when I was the clear standout and I should have been the one being promoted. So I definitely experienced it. But for you to say like not as much, or you can't think of that type of example, I would say that's very fortunate, what everyone should kind of have to go through.
I mean, I'm sure it's not reality for everyone in this
Oh,
country.
absolutely.
I mean, just going off my experience, I don't think I could ever point to one instance in my life where I've experienced racism. To be completely honest, I worked in the banking industry, and that means I see a shit ton of people. In that time, I've come across people saying racist things to me, but it was always funny to me. It was never serious racism because it never actively affected me, and it wasn't overtly racist. But I've seen certain hints, but just me personally, I don't think I've. So that may kind of hinder my argument.
Yeah, I mean, we would make racist jokes like Mr. Black out of our friend group used to kind of look the oldest of everyone, and he was growing like a full-grown beard by the time he was in 10th grade. So we would say,
"Oh, I did experience racism."
Well, so but like that's the thing. It wasn't because we were a friend group, but we kept calling him a terrorist. We kept calling him a terrorist, but we only kept it. We knew we had an understanding though. If we said that in front of white people, if we said that to any other group of people or race, and we called him a terrorist in front of not us, we just instinctively knew that that was not smart and not a good idea.
Yeah, like within a friend group, they called me that. Like but then they knew that if we were with other people, that was a fucked up thing for them to call me in front of other people.
Yeah, it was just not gonna. That was the kind of. It was just not gonna go well. But it was like where then it's almost kind of feeding into society's problem. Like it's okay for friend groups to do this and be racist with each other, and it's okay, which actually is perfect lead on as to why we're here, is the N-word. That's like the atomic bomb of racial slurs, and if you talk about anything at
there's
all,
no other word like it. Like
absolutely not. Absolutely the history
not.
That it has
within American culture,
the power that it has, there's none. But I mean, I'm sure you as a black man, you say it freely.
I do.
You do?
In certain environments.
I've heard it in your songs.
Yeah.
You know, so like I'm curious before we go into the questions that I have for both Mr. Black and Mr. Smith. I have 4 specific questions about this N-word topic, and we're gonna get into these topics. But I just want to hear your experience first as a black man. Like, are you just cool with using the N-word with just other African Americans, or are you cool? Like, have you had friend groups where they were white or a different race, and you were okay with them saying the N-word in your friend group?
So sadly, it's a case by case.
So for you, it kind of the context of what's going on plays more of a role than
how close you are to them, what they mean by it.
It depends on who it is and where I am, and also who's among me. Okay. So those are like the 3 things. So I really wouldn't use the N-word with my nephew.
Okay.
But I might use it with my brother.
Okay.
I wouldn't use it at the workplace because I'm not the only black person at my job. So I don't want to say it and then give other people who are not African American or black the green light to say it as well.
Okay.
Okay.
So is it subliminally now, or do you actually, every time you kind of bring it up, is there always a thought process? Like, do you have to be careful, and are you conscious of every time you're using it, or does it just come out sometimes?
It's really natural. I know when and when not to say it.
It's just kind of inbred because of how you grew up as African American. Yeah. You just kind of know when is the right time.
I just know when and where to say it.
Okay.
There was a time where I heard it in an environment where I was shocked. I was at the YMCA and I'm just playing ball with some kids. I wouldn't really call them kids. I mean, they're just younger than me. And mixed group, some Spanish kids, black kids, and like 3 white kids. Now, there's a white kid in the group who is cool with all of their friends, right?
Yeah.
And he just casually said, "Nigga," and then I had to stop. And I was like, he shouldn't be saying that. But I had to look at the group, and the group looked at me, and it was like, he's cool.
He's
They
cool.
could
Okay.
He's
was
cool,
like,
man. He's
yeah,
not a white
like,
guy.
it was like, we gave
That's
him
an amazing
permission.
movie moment right
Yeah,
there.
we gave him permission. Like, he's cool. You don't have to go off. But
now, if you, I don't mean to interject you. I would love to hear more examples. But if you had gone off, like, do you think it would have been an issue for the other African Americans that you were pissed about it? Would they? Because they're cool with it. Like they deal with it all the time. They're whatever. So if you had been like, yo, that's fucked up, and you gave them an issue, now do you see, because they're a closer friend group, do you see basically your African American community kind of protecting that white kid rather than being, yes, you have every right to be mad?
you might need to rephrase the question.
So it's kind of hypothetical that so maybe it's not a good time to ask it, but the hypothetical situation is that if you were to confront the white kid because you hurt him, would the African Americans in the other group, do you think they would more likely defend him or be empathizing with you that it's okay for you to be angry?
I think they would. I think they would defend him.
But they would understand your anger.
Yes.
Okay.
But more so, I wouldn't say really defend him. I would say they would prevent me from lashing out or approaching him or aggressing him in any manner, letting me know like I don't need to react that way.
But at no point you would feel like they would become aggressive towards you.
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's like the perfect segue into like the first Blaine question.
Absolutely.
And that first question is,
can white people say the N-word? So I think more when we talked about it, and when me and Mr. Smith talked about it too, I think more on the lines of, I think Mr. Smith does. Mr. Black has a very interesting point on the way the word is used, especially in today's day and age, the way we're going. So I have 4 posed questions for both Mr. Smith and Mr. Black. The first one is, can white people say the N-word? I mean, I will give my first opinion, and I just say no, and that's almost reactionary, but I would love to hear from Mr. Smith first.
So, I wouldn't want white people to say the black word. I wouldn't want white people to say the N-word. But in the U.S., we have a constitutional right to freedom of speech. So, there's no way that I could stop a white person from saying it, even if I don't want them to.
But should they be allowed to, in your sense? I mean, there's
a social contract.
There's social, like there are social movements where things are not socially acceptable anymore, so you don't do it. Like you no longer treat the women the same way because it's not socially acceptable anymore. There's no contract saying you got to do it that way, but it's just not that way. So do you think that should be like a social contract where white people just never say it, not even the context of maybe film or singing song lyrics, anything like that?
I am really glad that you mentioned freedom of speech, because I mean that's a good point to always put out, because it's a fundamental in the legal term.
Yeah.
But I think what Mr. White is also referring to is just like, if there was a social contract, do white people...
Are white people breaching it?
Yeah.
So, yes.
Okay.
I believe that there actually is a social contract. And if white people want to breach it, they are going to receive some type of backlash. And they should be prepared for that.
Well, now, what would you say to someone that say the word is actually created by white people? It's a Latin word. When it's spelled, it represents the color black, and it's spelled Niger as a Latin word. It got perverted to Nigar when the slave trade happened, and that's what they used to refer to Africans. I shouldn't call them African Americans. They were just Africans. So that's where the word started becoming perverted and started using it. So you can almost say it's created by white men. So what would you like for someone who were to use that argument against you? Like, or you're saying I shouldn't use a word that my ancestors created?
Because of the pain that is attached to that word and how it was used to basically Losing train of thought. But the word was used to make us less than human. And
which I agree. It was.
And if a white person says the word, it's hard to distinguish whether or not they're using it in that sense. So we have to really determine like what the context of the word is being used for. So if a white person wants to just casually call me nigga, like, what are they using it for? I have to either allow it or not allow it.
I mean, not on a personal level, but do you think they should just not even allow? Like, they shouldn't even try to say it. Like, it's been used as such a demonizing word that they no longer have the right to say it because they perverted it too much. Or is it still context to you?
It's all about context to me.
So, would you say now, as an African American, do you have family members? Obviously, I'm talking about older family members that have kind of experienced maybe the edge of civil rights movement and kind of experienced the segregation that was more prominent in like 60s and 70s of America?
No, mainly because my parents are not from America.
Okay.
They're Jamaican, so they have a different outlook on segregation and racial divide. But they through their life, they have experienced racism. And
I'm sorry. I've been calling you African American. I should call you Jamaican American.
Yeah.
You should have corrected me.
It's fine. I do identify as
you
African
do.
American.
Okay, that's interesting. Why? Before I continue, actually, why more do you identify as African American and not correct someone and say I'm Jamaican American?
I think
because us as Indians, like, there's brown people, but there's Hindus and Muslims, and we kind of always take the time to distinct it if someone confuses us. I don't know. It's almost kind of inbred in us. Like,
I used to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying like I'll go out and be like, bro, don't look at me like I'm Muslim.
Yeah.
But like, if they have if they confuse us, like I will clarify, but I wouldn't just identify as this kind of like brown people or we're just all kind of the same. I'm not saying you're the same, but why would you identify more as African American? Is it because you consider yourself more American and you relate to American history more?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So I agree to your point. It was definitely used to a very perverted way and demonized. And even now, I think when it's used, it still has that context because the history is not so far removed. Mm-hmm. The word has almost been liberated in such a short time that I feel like education has moved at a fast rate where people have an understanding of the word and the history, but they're not giving it the time. Like, white people got basically a couple hundred years to use and abuse the word. Mm-hmm. And now it's given back to the Black community. So, and now the Black community kind of wants to keep it. But there are a lot of people in the Black community that will say that it's not appropriate to use it. Would you agree with any of that, or is it just still all about context to you?
It's really all about context.
Okay.
It has a bunch of rules associated with it, and in regards to when it can be used, how it can be used in the terms. But I mean, my argument is that the way that we look at the word, I mean, I think is somewhat on a society level counterproductive. That's just the way I've seen it and the way that I've experienced it. I mean, to be completely honest, when I was a kid, use it all the time in an endearing way. I was a fan of hip hop. To be completely honest, I did use it.
I did too. I'm a confess.
Yeah, I mean, we were kids,
and like even you guys saying that, I'm not offended.
Yeah, because we didn't mean it, and you understand that. Yeah,
that's also because like you don't associate anger when it's with a kid as with a full functioning adult.
Yeah,
that you put more responsibility on the adult.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, what I mean is our intentions weren't bad or anything. We were true fans of hip hop. That was the culture we kind of loved and grew up with, and that was what was said. But what I mean by counterproductive, what I mean by that is, in determining the social contract, the social rules, you are then defining groups within that contract. This contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying black people and white people. So I think, in my opinion, I'm not saying that everyone should just be able to say it all of a sudden, but I am saying there is something there where this conversation, this dialogue, in its essence, divides, and I think that's something that needs to be talked about. Because I mean, the question earlier we were talking about is, can Indian people say it?
Yeah, because we're both Indian, and I've made the joke to you, Mr. Smith, where Indians were kind of the first recorded slaves, so why can't I say the N-word? I mean, there's some truth to that, to the point where, I mean, on the subcontinent of India is one of the areas where you have pre-civilization and tribes, just like you had in how life started in Africa, and the people there, basically expansion started oppressing them. First it was the Muslims and Mughal Empire in like the 11th and 10th century, and then it became eastward expansion. From, you hear stories about Great Alexander. So Indian, and they were shipped off to Africa, and Africans had them as slaves for a time, and then you had I believe it was Idi Amin, pushing out everyone from Uganda, things like that. So brown people have been oppressed. That was my point, that as Indians we have been oppressed. So when we go around as kids saying the N-word and calling, you're my N-word, whatever, we don't mean it demonizing, but do you think we have more of a right to freely say it in this country? Like the word, I don't believe should be allowed for white people because what they've done with it. But as someone of a color, like, can we just say it freely? Can we sing along with you? Can we go to Kendrick Lamar and sing along with you and be like, where you from, man?
So with that point brought up, comparatively, you would be able to say it because Indians were the first recorded slaves, but the word was never used to identify those slaves.
Yes.
So that's where the disconnect comes in. The word was used to identify African slaves, not Indian slaves. And I mean, Jewish people were,
yes,
they got
they're
fucked up too.
The Jewish race is one of the most oppressed races.
So
throughout history,
they can't use the word was never used for them, obviously, but with your argument, they would be able to bring up your same argument for themselves.
That they would be able to say the N-word.
Because they
and that would not be cool.
And that wouldn't be cool at all.
So that's one of the things that
I should mention your rapper name is like a Hebrew name, by the way. I'm gonna just let you sink that one in. I'm gonna just let you sink that in real quick.
I've been oppressed, so I can take the name.
I'm sorry, Mr. Black. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That is one of the biggest arguments that I hear. The argument is whether blank race or type of people can say it, and then immediately what we do is we look back and pretty much look at, have they been fucked over enough to qualify to be able to say it? And why I disagree with that is because it automatically forces you once again to create groups of people. And coming from, when the root of racism is the assumption that your assumptions on a group of people apply to the individual. So that's essentially the root of racism. So I feel like this conversation, but also the social contract with the word enforces these assumptions.
Well,
and then also another thing too is, I would argue that within the social contract as well, it shouldn't be white people. It should be more specifically white Americans. Because, I mean, in Europe, the slave trade was apparent in some places, but not all places. It wasn't white people as a race overall. Because if that was the case, we'd have to go to the fucking genetics and be like, why are these people so fucked up? But it's a cultural thing. It was an American culture.
You sound like Hitler. I'm just saying.
No, I'm saying that's not true. But if it was, then any scientist would be like, this is something we need to look at in a genetic level. But it's not. I mean, this is all culture.
Well, it almost seems like American white citizens are. At first, I think they're afraid of becoming minorities. So now they've kind of created this thing. Whereas, like, if we can't say the N word anymore, you guys shouldn't be able to say it anymore either.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're gonna use it so abundantly, then we're gonna use it too. Getting almost freely with it, but the social contract is because of what white, you can call them white Americans now, but they weren't Americans then. But what white people did to Africans, like the brutality of it, it was such a devastating time period that they took the word to phrase it to any. So they were the ones that created segregation. Now I understand that you're saying the word itself creates this inequality of group. Like now it's just part of the black community. So now you have a distinction between what white people can say and what black people can say and do. But there's a difference. Black people have a sense in the community, just like how Indians do in the community, that we're going through this. White people don't have to go and be afraid of getting pulled over. Black people have to walk on eggshells no matter what they do, whether it's they go for their careers or they go out to go hang out with friends. Yeah. They always have a worry. White people don't have this worry. That's why the word is not theirs to use in their community, because the black people have this sense of community, whereas we know the oppressive nature. We know you as a young black man, you're going through, no matter what you're choosing in life, you're going to go through some of the same things that I did. Just as we as Indians know, like, you know, you're going to be cheap like this, or you're going to do this, or you're going to just, because that has a community sense of, it's not stereotyping. It's just the way that they put this place and they put this world, that people are in these groups for a certain reason. I would love it for it not to be groups, but now that it should be left alone for the black community to decide what to do with it or what they want to do with it. White people have no sense of, and even trying to look into it and be like, we should take that word back, or freedom of speech, or no, it is done. It's a social contract. You have no more right of saying that word. You've abused it enough.
But I'm also arguing that you're making a group of people pay the price of, unless you're making them pay a price for previous generations for not saying that, for their actions, and now you are implying that the current generation is actively fucking over the current black generation.
You're right, and I wouldn't imply that.
The argument would be,
I wouldn't imply that if racism was just still not a big thing. Because racism is a big thing, white people imply that because you're brown, you're a terrorist. Because you're black, you're a thug. Like, white people are doing it, so why is it so bad that black people take right of their word or right of their community and say this is our thing, not your thing? Because they should get in trouble because it's not theirs. It's not theirs to say. If you don't want segregation, then stop treating everyone that they're being segregated.
But in trouble by who? Because legally we can't, enforce like white people not saying the word. So that's why the societal contract upholds how we use the word.
The societal contract is if a white person, like an anchorman, were to slip out the word, or
that's
a comedian,
when there's an actual punishment.
There's a punishment for it. That's a social contract that if you're going to say it, even in the workplace, if you're going to say it, you're going to get fired. It's an HR issue. You're going to get down. You're going to get fired. Like these things are consequences of you using the word.
Yes. So isn't that justified? Like, isn't that justice from your point of view?
But it doesn't stop the racism. People are still using the word, and people are. So let me even ask you, in the variation of the words, do you find it more offensive if someone were to use the ER end of it rather than like the AH end of it?
No.
No,
there's
not
no
at
difference.
all.
There's no difference.
There's no difference to you.
Really? So
I've always assumed that there was a difference.
I assumed that if someone would say it with the ER, it was, I don't know, like more harsher or something. Like that was always my assumption.
But for you personally, you don't see a difference.
No.
Okay.
If a person, I guess ER is much more offensive because of the historical use of it, but they could say it with an A at the end of it, and I'm still gonna be just as emotional.
Okay.
No,
that's interesting because I have heard obviously African Americans say the ER version of it is more of an oppressive regime or word than the A version of it.
I think that's a common understanding too, because when we said it as kids, I think if one of us said it with the ER, we'd be like, "Dude, what the fuck?"
It was kind of like you crossed the line.
We thought, So I mean,
It is. I mean, I think the reason it became kind of slight, and I think will probably lead to our next topic is hip hop. Um, the use of it in hip hop was always kind of the A ending, and it kind of made it like this positive, cool thing to say, and it became a stigma where if you added the other ending to it, you're kind of skipping that history and going back to the slavery history and using it in that type of way. You being a hip hop artist, you conducting your music, obviously you use it in your lyrics.
Occasionally.
So occasionally, I'm not saying you abuse it or anything. If the lyrics call for it, it calls for it. So us as fans of hip hop, I have an interesting story, and this is a true story. Kendrick Lamar had a concert, and he called up someone on the stage to sing one of his songs, and he called up a white girl. Knowing the song what he's gonna play, he gave the microphone to the white girl, and she sang the lyrics, and then the N word came up, and she sang it with the N word. She said the N word, and the crowd turned on her right away. They're booing her, and he kind of stops and says, like, "What are you doing?" And
To
and
her
she,
or the crowd?
to her, to
Yeah,
her.
okay.
And she kind of has a point. She's like, "What? I like your music. You don't like that kind of." I mean, she does sound a little drunk, but she has a point. Like, she's just singing his song. She's obviously a fan of his to be there. And honestly, subliminally, like, Kendrick is obviously cursing and saying the N word in his own concert. And you're gonna call up someone to sing part of your song you know there's an N word in. Why would you call up a white girl? Why would you call up a drunk white girl in the first place? So like, it almost seems like, I'm not saying like he's playing a political game or he even did it on purpose, but like almost this double standard of, if it's in hip hop music and people are just fans of it, then why for African Americans or black people is it getting so offensive?
So I do believe that Kendrick Lamar, if he was, if that was brought up to him, like in an interview or a blog or something, I'm pretty sure he would handle that differently after the fact. But he probably assumed that she would just censor herself
Like a radio edit.
while, like um, reciting the lyrics. And because she didn't, he got offended. Now, I don't think he was offended necessarily by the word. He was offended that she didn't censor herself and basically broke the social contract of the use of the word. So in that moment, it's not that Kendrick felt as though he was being called a nigga. He felt as though she breached the contract and that she shouldn't have used the word at all.
What would you say to someone's argument that he almost put her in that position, knowing what was going to happen? He kind of set her up to fail.
I don't think he knew.
I don't think he knew, but I also think that, to the greater point, it's not as relevant to the point in the way that she said it. It all comes down to, in regards to any word, curse word or the N word, it's the inflection and how it's said that determines. You could say shit all day long, but when you call someone a piece of shit, like, it's different than using the word shit. So I would say the N word in certain types of contexts were different. So I would argue that within that context, her being a huge fan and being a little intoxicated and going on stage, being asked to sing the lyrics, knowing that's coming up. Yeah, I'm not saying that there should have been no repercussions, but I'm saying that in that certain situation, I feel like I don't know what the repercussions was for her saying it, but
I mean, she got booed off stage. She got like bottles thrown off her. Like, and now, I mean, obviously she might have been on the news. Some videos posted of her. So like, I'm not saying like her life is ruined, but she obviously paid the consequences for it.
Yeah.
And she was just a fan. She was just like, as a fan, she was almost appreciating him, and he took offense because she appreciated him too much.
Yeah.
No, I'm in the sense of believing, like, white people shouldn't say it, but what I think hip hop has almost done with the word is put it in a positive light with the black community. Now I think I'm not obviously in the black community, but what I can tell or what I see from it is they're now using it as terms of endearment, and it's no longer an oppressive thing. It's just a different language, just like how me and you have a different greeting in our languages. They have a different greeting in their language now. Which almost sounds backwards because if it's just a language, people should just be able to say it.
I mean, I want to put something out there that's like a little bit off topic, I guess, but I think it's a good tool in order to kind of break down what I'm trying to say. If you guys were to stumble across two, I don't know, like 5-year-olds, a little white kid, a little black kid, and they're friends, and you overhear the little white kid refer to the black kid with the N word in a positive inflection, like that's used in hip hop. Most people would pull a white kid aside and then tell him why he can't say that, or tell him he can't. That in itself, that conversation that you tell the white kid, I feel like is harmful for the positive well-being of the child in regards to.
Why is it harmful?
It's not harmful in regards to him surviving through life, because then that's good for him to know that he can't say that so he doesn't get the shit beat out of him.
Yeah.
But I mean, in a way to, like, kids are not inherently racist. Our future generations are not born racist. So when you talk to a child and you say that back your ancestors did this fucked up shit, and that's why today we as a people cannot say that.
I mean, you don't.
But
really
the kid,
teach the child
I know,
that
but
way.
like the
You're just telling him no, it's a bad word. You don't say it.
yeah, but with every single there's rules with and the N word specifically. You have to say what the rules are, because he'll hear other kids say it, and then if you don't explain to him, he'll go up to another black and say you can't say that word, which is not true.
Yeah.
So you need to explain the rules of the N word to a little kid. But then when you do that, you're associating that little kid with generations of fucked up murderers and rapists, and the kid has nothing to do with it. The current generation does not inherently have something to do with the fucked up things of the past. Some people today are fucked up and racist, and they use it in bad ways. Those people should be stopped. But with our current generation, saying that they can't say it because you are related to these fucked up practices, I think is, I don't know, not in the right direction, or maybe harmful in a slighter way.
But if
That's my point.
Wait, now with that same scenario,
Mm-hmm.
why is it that you would approach the white child and tell him that he can't say the word?
Because it would be offensive for him to say it. And I mean, let's say he's an adult and no one taught him that lesson. It's an offensive term in today's society. Like even though I'm saying this point, if like my child were to say it,
Yeah,
I would definitely tell my child, you can't say it. That's not correct. That's mean, and this is why, and all that.
now I understand that point of view, but if I'm the outsider and I see a black kid and a white kid says, "What's up, my nigga?" to the black kid, I'm immediately gonna approach the black kid and say, like, basically ask him, "Are you accepting of this use from this person towards you?"
Okay.
So, all in all, I'm trying to say that black people may be the gatekeeper of the use of this word.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
and that if it's used, there has to be some black person around to say it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, give the stamp of approval. But if no one gives the stamp of approval, then society's going to say, nah, you shouldn't have used it.
But
It's off limits.
you both are talking as if like you're kind of letting this happen. My thing is, if you let this happen, you're gonna revert it back to it getting perverted. Whereas you being saying it's a gatekeeper, like should you not just keep it closed because of the oppressive meaning that it has? It's just like
I mean, like take out the word
yeah,
entirely.
no, I mean now, yeah, you can even do that. The NAACP had like this official rally to bury the word, the N word, and they like did a show of taking an empty casket, and actually burying it. So the NAACP is actually burying the word. So they actually did try to kill it off, but obviously it's not dead. But the symbolism is there. So as a black community, as the gatekeepers, they are trying to stop the word from being used. But the way you guys are saying it is almost you're giving a lesson to let them use it. You saying if you teach the white kid not to use it, now you're teaching segregation. Now there's no equality between them, which is actually a great point, because there are a lot of black scholars that say, or not black scholars, but a lot of black people that believe that if you keep segregating the word and telling people that they can't use it and only black people can, then you're not really moving and progressing towards true equality.
Yeah.
But the word is so damaging. It's just like there's this he's actually a black scholar. His name is like Ta-Nehisi Coates. I'm saying that terribly wrong. Ta-Nehisi Coates. Anyways, he wrote a book, and it's basically I forget what the book is called. It's like the 8 years we had, and then it has like a very solemn title to it, almost like a very mourn title. And the book is almost like a statement to say that Trump is a reaction to Obama being the very first black president of America. America is such a racist country and doesn't know how to deal with it, that our backlash is us electing Trump as our president, which is a great point of view, and it actually makes a lot of sense. And he has some great quotes and interviews that he does, but he also breaks down in social context of like a white girl posed him the question, like, I hear friends say it, I hear friends do it in circles and them singing along to lyrics, and I feel uncomfortable. Like, how, like what do you do with the word? And to him, it was mainly about education. The education was, if you take it in a social context, like he equated it to his wife. His wife has a group, and they all call each other bitches. But would you as having a girlfriend and she's calling her friends bitches, would you partake and be like, "What's up, bitches"? Like, no, it's social. Like, you just know that's gonna lead to something bad. Same thing with gays. Like they say fag or something like that, queer or whatever. Do we go up to a gay person and be fag? No, you just.
But they have taken that word on themselves. It used to be used as a pejorative term, but now they have, as a group, they have taken that word on.
Yes, and as
they use it as as a pridefully.
Exactly, as a black community, you guys have now taken through hip hop, through any type of medium, you guys have now taken the word. You use it positively for your own sense. You just, I'm not. The thing is, you shouldn't excuse white people or other people saying it. There's so much history to the word. I say history to the word, excuse me there, because I asked Mr. Black's little brother, he's in high school, and I asked him just like his social experience, what he, like when we went through school, even if we had a black friend in the group, it was kind of unquestionable to ask him if we could even use the N-word. Unless you had some sort of just childhood connection to him, there was no type of even approaching the idea. Nowadays, he goes around with groups and they're all freely using it. They even black kids in the group are accepting it more, and I think it's because they don't understand the history of it. They're disconnected from it. They don't understand that it was such an oppressive thing for colored people, not just blacks, just colored people, because it was used to undermine people.
Even colored people is offensive.
It is.
People of color is not.
You're right.
Wait, say that again?
Colored people is offensive.
Colored people is
that term
just as offensive as nigga.
Oh.
Yeah.
But if you say,
I guess I just said the N-word on our podcast.
Well, you didn't mean to.
No, but just for the sake of it, it's.
No, but you're right.
It's
I mean, I've never like used that term, but I didn't even know it was like offensive.
But if you say people of color,
yeah,
there's no connotation to it. There's no negative connotation to it at all.
But that's crazy that it's equivalent to the N-word, and I mean, I guess it's not embedded in the English language as much as the N-word is, so I never heard of it.
But with nigger and nigga and all the variations of it, there are phrases that are used euphemistically to try and get away from that offensive word. So blacks and African Americans and colored people are basically words that are used to not say nigga. But it's sort of like a trickling down of that negative connotation. So now we get to African Americans. Like, anyone can say African American and no one is offended by it. Yeah. But basically we started at nigger and we got down to African American now.
So I actually had a coworker, and whenever we had discussions, I would always say African American, and then he like corrected me, was like, "Dude, you can just say black people."
Yeah.
So I don't know your opinion. Like, is it right to say that? Like,
so
just,
black people is fine.
Yeah.
Because it's
Okay,
it's a long way from nigger.
Oh,
so,
got you. I see what you're trying to say.
So it's nigger is the 10 on the offensive list.
Yeah.
African Americans.
So because there's history with that word,
Yeah.
so aren't you afraid that if you just start letting it be freedom of speech and letting it be used just so freely again, that it just creates distance from this history, and no one will, like, that's what I'm saying with kids nowadays. They don't care because now it's more rap related than it is history related, and they're just freely using it because it's just lyrics. Sounds cool. We're being cool. It's no big deal. We're not offending anyone. Which absolutely, I'm not saying that they're trying to be offensive, but now people are just forgetting why the word was there. Why is it important? Why is it a big discussion for us to have? Like, what don't you think just being able to use it and even letting it be used in contextual situations, you're just giving history away, and you're just letting that go?
All right, so let me ask you this question: Would it be wrong to? And I actually had this experience. Would it be wrong for a white student to read a book out loud that has the word nigger in it?
That's interesting. That is interesting because I've been in that situation in high school, and I asked the teacher, like, should I read? And they told me to read on, and I said the word and I read it on. Just like, in Quentin Tarantino movies, like Quentin Tarantino uses N-word a lot, like,
Yeah.
and but it's like an entertainment thing. So, I mean, is that okay? Is it okay because now it's in a context, like it's used historically, so we're gonna reproduce that historical event, and that's how they said it, so we're gonna say it like that?
Yes, it's fine for a person to read a book and say it out loud. It's fine for a person to quote someone else. So the girl on stage saying it, like, it is okay for her to do that, but certain people aren't going to be okay with it, and that's what she has to read, and that's what other people will have to read. So you have to know.
But people are stupid. Like, people are not going to read it. Which, I mean, my fourth and last question for you both was, like, should we absolve the word? I mean, we've been discussing it a little bit going forward, but should it be just kept to the black community? They get the gates, and they just have to do it contextually. If a famous person uses it wrong, damn them, and they're going to get their consequences. Or should we just absolve it? I mean, the NAACP, like, basically the representation of black community of America, had made a public statement to visually bury the word. Yet here we still are discussing about the word.
Look, I think there's no way you could ever absolve a word. It's impossible. You can't just get rid of a word. And
why? I mean, we're expanding our vocabulary to, like, OMG and all that. Like, we're adding this shit into the dictionary.
I mean, how would you go about doing that? If anyone tries to absolve a word,
I would say the NAACP is trying. I mean, they made a visual representation to bury the word. If the conversation isn't
if
there,
you make something more taboo, it will then grow within the culture. If you do so, it can't come from the government. It has to be through social means, because in America we have freedom of speech. People can say fucked up shit, so you can't do it legally. You can only do it through culture, and if you do it that way, it's also part of our history. So the word's not going to be going anywhere. And I would say I would actively encourage movies and books to, like, 12 Years a Slave. Like, that movie was very important because it reminded. I don't know if you guys saw it.
I've seen bits and parts of it, but
a really good movie.
Which I agree with you, because that gives the history lesson. It gives the truth behind the word. So that's almost educating people. But like I say, if you are kind of just letting people use it whenever they want, or if they want to do it with lyrics, and you're kind of diluting the history. You're just making it okay now. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Smith had a point. I mean, I'm going to interject you there. You had something to say.
I would say that maybe in 25 years, we won't really be having this conversation. I think the word will be used more freely. White people or just non-African Americans or non-Black people will be able to say the word with less backlash from society. That's what I think. I think because we're still close to slavery, we're still close to racism. Racism is still a major thing, but
do you think that's mainly going?
I think time will. I think if we let time, go its course, the word will have less of a negative connotation in its everyday use by everyone.
I agree. I think it's mainly through hip hop, though. I believe because of that medium, the way hip hop has transformed the word and the way they use it. I think that's the reason that it's going to get diluted into the way you're saying.
We're only talking about the positive inflection of the word, but there's also the negative inflection. If someone is actually racist against Black people, they use the word. So I don't think 25 years, because I believe actual racism will last way longer in America. And then after that, we'll evolve into racism through other means, like political parties and all that stuff. Yeah. Because everyone will, mix and everything. But so that's far off.
That I can agree on with you, Mr. Black, that I don't think racism will die anytime soon.
Yeah. But that's what I mean, though. Like, racism won't die anytime. However, there's a common... I mean, it's through not only racism toward Black people, but in regards to a lot of things, like saying that another group is being oppressive, which is, it may come off that way, but the oppression is historical, and it's the oppression from the past is then regurgitating and still influencing today. But that doesn't necessarily mean the amount of people who are racist back then are still racist now, because I think, my argument would be is that racism is still there today, but it was still, we've come a long way.
Yeah.
So blaming another group based off of what they've done in the past is something that it doesn't really sit well with me too much. But I understand also that we're not there yet.
I agree with that. It doesn't sit with me very well either. And I hate the argument where white people say, like, now it's becoming segregated, or now this group, just the way you said it. Well, it's because of you guys these groups are segregated. It's because of you guys these groups feel...
Wait, when you say you guys, what do you mean?
White people. I mean, let's just be, like, that's who oppress the groups.
I just don't like that term.
Like, but your take on, like, if you take and teach the white kid that it's no longer good to say, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, actually. I'm losing my point that I had you. Could you repeat the last part that you said?
The word will stay as long as the blame is put on our group. And then that's why, because that group of people can't say it, because there's current blame and still anger and resentment on that group for things that their ancestors have done. So in order to heal and move forward, removing that obstacle may be something you have to actively work towards.
That example you had with the little white Timmy kid, and you teach him that it's a bad word, and why is he responsible for an oppressive group? That's great. That's a great thinking. Now go tell all the old white people, why are brown people responsible if some brown people do something? Why are Chinese people responsible if some Chinese people do something? It's great to think that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it starts with the powerful people, and the powerful people, unfortunately, are white old people. So yes, you have the right mind of thinking, but it's just unfortunately that they're not transitioning this thinking. They want to act like the victims, but they are not giving the actual victims the time of day and the respect that they deserve.
I mean,
for whatever word or whatever is in their culture, you're the reason. They're the reasons that group was created to think a certain way.
Yeah.
They were oppressed a certain way.
But powerful white people you're referring to, we just had a Black president who held the highest power in the world for 8 years. So these things are being broken down.
And I would argue, after hearing about that book, look how America reacted. Look at our president now.
I mean,
look at the elections. He doesn't talk about a single fucking issue except the caravan is coming and there is an invasion coming to the south of the border that's apparently 200 miles away and won't get here for months. And even if they do, if they survive that shit, he's sending 5,000 troops to the border.
People also argue, and you can easily make the argument that he's sexist as well. But when you look at the polls, women were also voting for her too. This is not purely a racial or sexist thing. Trump, you cannot just put on to racism or sexism because it's way bigger than that. It comes with a class relationship and what he promised.
No, I would argue that
that's
he
a
is
different
the epitome of white supremacy. But you're right. That's completely different. We're getting into politics, not a completely different argument. I would like to wrap it up because I know we've been pushing time here.
Wait, but to finish it off as well, even though we were discussing whether or not white people can use the N-word, mainly because it's assumed that it's used with a negative connotation towards black people.
Mm-hmm.
Even black people use it negatively towards other black people.
Yeah.
So, if we want to get rid of the word, I don't know how we would do that, but
so are you basically saying it starts with the black community?
Yes.
Starts with the black community deciding what they want to do with it.
It starts and ends with us.
Yes.
Doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. So we have to be more accepting of other people using the word in a certain context.
Yeah, in a positive inflection.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith's message is just think it through. Just think it through.
At all times.
At all times. Don't be an idiot. Don't be Trump.
Yeah.
All right. With that note, I thank you both for participating. I mean, Mr. Black, you're always here with me, but thank you, Mr. Smith, for coming through. We appreciate it so much. You're our very first official guest. We're gonna get an exclusive on your new album, probably in like 3-4 years. I'm just gonna give I know your other album is not on iTunes. But I want to give a quick rundown of the track list and to let people know that you fucking create an album. Like it's no joke. Like people say I'm gonna write a book, this yada yada yada. Like until you actually accomplish something, until you do it, you can't say you did it. And you actually did it. You successfully created something, and it's out there. And I love it. And if you can just slide that over, I can read the track list for everyone. Do you have an album name for this?
Because it was my first album, I called it Trackment Presents Yachel. Trackment Productions is
that your production group?
That would be my production company. It's not really I don't have an official business name, but that would be my
I'm seeing all MMG vibes here. I'm seeing some nice ladies going Trackment Productions.
Yeah, I actually do have an intro like that. The two young ladies, their names are Asia West and Autumn Temple.
Okay.
So if you guys ever hear it, those are the two young ladies who actually recorded my Trackment Productions drop.
Like the MMG girl?
Yeah, sort of like that.
Okay.
And I'll probably have to break them off a piece of change if I ever make millions.
Oh, you gonna make billions. All right. So the track list, you made 14 songs.
So minus the intro.
Okay, you made 13 songs. All right, guys. So he has an intro. Track 2, Breathe In, Breathe Out. Track 3, Can I Touch? Track 4, Can't Take It, featuring Rachel Byer. Am I saying
that's
her
her
name?
name.
Rachel Byer. She is an amazing singer. Like I have not met her. I have not seen her. But I've heard the song. She is the reason that song gives me the '90s vibe. Like solely her. I'm sorry. You got amazing production, and everything.
Thank
but
you.
her voice.
All I can say is thank you.
Yeah, her voice takes me back. All right, and then we got track 8, I'm So Fly, featuring Gary Lawrence.
Yeah, Gary is he's actually producing. I think he's producing music now.
Oh yeah,
because I introduced him to it. So after we made that song, he had this newfound love for music, and he's producing right now. I know that he's had some placements with P&B Rock, and I know he's worked alongside some notable producers.
I like I'm So Fly.
Yeah, it was a fun track.
No offense to Gary, but I like your verse a little better.
He's much better. I can tell you, he's much better right now.
And then track 9, we got Mr. Adams featuring Carson Much.
Yeah, Carson. Yeah, he just wanted to get on a track with me, and I said, "To hell with it, let's do it."
All right. Mm-hmm. And we got track number 10, My Number One.
Yes, the story behind that song was, I had a girlfriend who wanted me to make a song for her, and I told her that I will. It took me 4 years to get to it, but I promised her that I would make a song for her.
Oh, you made it.
4 years later,
someone.
Wow.
it was I can't remember her last name. Her first name is Tiffany though.
Is she a special someone that's still?
She was.
Is she still your number one?
The song was made. The song was made for her.
All right. TMZ scoop.
I wanted to make sure that I, stuck
we get
by my
all
word.
the exclusive on Yachel.
I stuck by my word. So,
all right, track 11, we got Freak. I like that one. That's a real cool like party song. But we bump it in the club to that one. Track 12, Sweat It Out. That's another party one. I like that one. Track 13, Take Me There, and track 14, You Can't.
Yeah, that's it.
Which one would you say is your favorite? Which one are you the most proud of? I mean, you should be proud of this whole fucking thing. You got 13 songs on here plus an intro. Like, that's production, man.
I'm proud of Can't Take It because I remember the process of that song.
With my girl Rachel.
Yeah.
A
lot. Honestly, man.
I'm sorry, my girlfriend.
So much happened. This song took like 4 months to make, and I remember I went to sleep one night and I woke up out of my sleep to make the beat. Now, the beat that you hear is not the beat from its original inception, but I made the beat and I wrote the lyrics, and I got one girl to like sing the lyrics, and it didn't sound the way I wanted it to sound. I got a second girl to sing, still didn't sound the way I wanted it to sound. Rachel shows up out of the blue. I didn't even know, no one knew Rachel could sing. So I told her to sing Diary by Alicia Keys. She sang like 5 words. I said, stop, we need to record right now. Like she just blew me away. I kicked the other 2 girls to the curb. They were upset, but I was like, this is my project. I need to do it the way I want to do it. And
it was a good decision.
Me and Rachel made that song, and it was so much fun, and it was so great that another schoolmate of mine did a video project on me recording the song. Oh, so her project was basically just to record me.
Yeah.
And she got a freaking A in her class, which was the same class that Dr. FJ was teaching.
So when you become famous, not only did we get the exclusive history of it, but you also have a documentary of this happening.
Yes. No. I legit do, and I can give you the link. Like you can put that link up and like.
Hell yeah, we would love to.
Yeah.
On that note, again, Mr. Smith, thank you so much for coming through. We appreciate you having the discussion. I'm sure we'll have you back on other topics. Just for music alone, sometimes I would just like to know how music is made.
Yeah.
We could do a little junkie short on that too. But again, Mr. Smith, thank you so much. Before we plug anything else, is there any last words you have on the topic or podcast or anything, any opinion or anything else you just want to say to people if anyone's even listening?
I just want to thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. I'm loving what y'all doing. I can't wait for this to blow up. Like,
thank you.
I'm just happy to be like at the beginning of this because I know this is gonna go far. And
that's the dream, but we're just happy to be doing this regardless.
Yeah.
Like we're just excited. Like, oh my god, we got someone to interview. We got someone to talk them through. Someone's excited for us. So on that note, I wanted to give a shout out to someone else that was also excited for us. It was our first Twitter follower, and I promised them I'll give them a shout out. Their Twitter handle is Shinobi Ninja. It's 2 words, Shinobi Ninja, and they're actually like this. I would almost say like an alternate band, and they make music as well. If you look at their Twitter handle, they do concerts, they have a song and everything, and they kind of produce everything from their phone. But the crazy part is they have an app video game based on their name and based on like the characters in the band, which is pretty fucking amazing to have a video game after your whatever group you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's almost kind of making the dream too. So, I mean, they're a young group. They just kind of happened, I guess, to follow, and whether they liked us or not, but I was excited about it, so I want to give them a shout out. Their Twitter handle is Shinobi Ninja, 2 words. Besides that, Mr. Black, is there anything else that you would like to say about this or anything?
About this topic? I mean, it's still a divisive topic, and I feel like all three of us here are under the same understanding. It's not like this is like a toxic argument or anything.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so like I mean,
quick question: can I freely say it with you now? Like, am I in now? we'll talk on Liz's side later.
Listen, it's all based on how I feel.
Okay,
so you gotta feel them out.
Yeah.
All right.
You heard of microaggression? If I feel microaggressed, then it's a problem.
I might just
shoot your shot.
I just feel like testing the waters now. I'm sorry.
I think that's a good way to go into it. But Mr. White, if someone is listening, which it looks like one person might be.
Yes, we got Mr. Smith listening. So, Mr. Smith, if you want to hear yourself talk again, you can find us at tvjunkies.com. That's our official website. We have all the podcast episodes on the website. You can go to episodes, but there's also other cool stuff. You can learn about us. There's frequently asked questions, which we'll try to get more up, but it's just like we don't even have people asking us questions right now. And you can also find us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at TV Junkies. There will be more posts to come, but we're trying to stay up to date with current events. So if you guys have suggestions or anything to say, just tweet us, Instagram us, or Facebook us at TV Junkies. Listen to our episodes at tvjunkies.com. Thank you so much. I am Mr. White.
I'm Mr. Black.
And I'm Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yachel.
There we go. TV Junkies.